Okay, so perhaps this is your first time airbrushing, something like that. So what we're going to do is take a really close look at everything we're going to be doing. Okay, first up, your actual airbrush itself. You know, before using it, make sure that the trigger is nice and springy. If it's sticking or stuck, don't obviously go ahead now. Sometimes it's worth opening it up, okay, and then having a look at the needle, making sure it's nice and clean, everything else like that. So it's well worth, like on this one, we're just going to get a little bit of thinners on a cloth. Okay, just pop the needle in, and we're just pulling it right off the edge. Don't pull in, otherwise you're likely to stab yourself for one. But as you can see, this is quite a clean setup, and we've already got dirt on here. So we're going to clean the needle just like that. Okay, making sure it's all nice and springy in there, everything else. Okay, so we pop the needle back in the back, just a bit of a tap, do the rear collet up, okay, on again, and we're all okay. What we can do, we can pop the air in, okay, and we're trying to make it listen to be a really sharp sound. If you've got a bit of run on, it's doing this business, then there's something wrong. Maybe you've got the bottom tightened up a little bit too much. You can slacken off this area here, just slacken it off a touch, and that will help. But you want it to be nice and springy just like that. And it's well worth just getting a drop of airbrush cleaner just in your brush, okay, and then we're just going to blow it out, and we'll look and see if we've got any bits and nasties in the cloth, which we don't on this one. And also you can look at the sideways on and see a spray pattern, how it's actually coming out. Okay, so that one is all fine. So there we go, that's the airbrush done. The other thing I like to use is this little guy. Now this is a clean station, as you can see mine is absolutely filthy. What I tend to do, I've just cleaned it out to be honest, but I get a little bit of kitchen roll, stick it in there, and that will soak up any nasties, and it makes it easier to clean out rather than have it just slopping around in the bottom, something like that. And also, if you're like me, it holds your airbrush just like that, so that's quite handy. Okay, the model itself, when obviously we're working on it, it's got dusty filler bits and pieces in there, so it's well worth going around and checking your model is absolutely clear of all filler dust and fingerprints and everything else. So you're looking for a nice smooth surface. One thing obviously I've done previously, we've come along with the polishing sanding buffing ones, okay, so all we've done, we've gone along everywhere, giving it a bit of a rub, and then we come along with the white side as well, give it a run over, and you can see it gets very, very shiny because this has polished it up. It's going to get rid of any glue marks, finger marks, and all the rest of it. The other thing you can do as well, just do down here, because there is a little bit of a mark down here, so we're just going to give it a run there. Okay, and over. The other thing you can do, you can use things like plastic prep, which is like an alcohol type based cleaning wipe, and go right the way over it. Don't use obviously cellulose thinners or anything too harsh like that, because what's going to happen is you're actually going to melt the surface, okay? So obviously you can use things like airbrush cleaner. So if you wanted to, take a little bit, this is just your standard airbrush cleaner, okay? A little bit on there, okay? And then what we can do, we can just give this a gentle wipe over everything, and this gets rid of any grease, bits and pieces like that, giant fingerprint marks, everything else, okay? So you can just give a bit of a run, bit of a wipe round everywhere, okay, and it will get rid of it, and it should dry naturally off, okay? Just turn your kitchen roll over and give it a buff over, just to get it all off. Okay, just something similar like that. Then you can do the underside. Okay, but you're not trying to scrub it under here too far, because you should have got it, most of it off anyway. It's just going to get rid of any fingerprints and nasties and bits and pieces. Okay, but as I say, you can buy proper stuff for this. Something called plastic prep's very, very good at this, and it cleans up. But what this will do, it gets rid of any dust and nasties. Second thing, your surface under here. Don't do it on an old thing. I've got fresh bits of kitchen towel down here. Normally I do it in the spray bay, but because I wanted to show you quite close up what I'm doing, today I'm going to be doing it actually on my desk. Normally, obviously, I've got the extractor running and I'll be wearing a mask and things like that, so I think of your health and your safety. The other thing as well, your actual parts that you're going to be painting, if you've got any loose ones, okay, what you can do, cocktail stick, or like this little guy that I've got just down here, okay, then what you can do, you can actually take some of your modelling tack. I like to use white tack. The reason I use white tack is because it doesn't have any glues, oils and resin and sort of anything that could sort of ooze out and affect your paintwork. What you do, you come along and you can stab them and put them into your areas like so. So I'm going to pop these in and do these. Now these doors, we're going to be doing the inside green but the outside blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray the outside first and do it in this blue, and then we're going to come around and do the rest green, but we can do that afterwards, which is a technique that I'll show you. Mind you, don't stab yourself to death on the ones which don't have anything on, which has been known for me to do in the past. So we'll just take them out and pop them over here. Okay, so we've got a couple more of these to go on, and then we can get moving. Now whilst I'm doing this, talking about paints and thinners, obviously, you know, you've got your many different types of thinners, and I know a lot of people, you will use just normal sort of distilled water for using as thinners and all the rest of it. Nothing wrong with that. If that's the way you want to do it, then absolutely fine, but I do find proper thinners works a lot better. Now your choices you have, obviously you've got Extra Acrylics do theirs, Tamiya do theirs, Mr. Colour do theirs, so you really can't go too far wrong from using the manufacturer's own thinner. So for instance, Extra Acrylics do one, you could use Extra Acrylics. Obviously Hobby Colour, something like this, you can do Hobby Colour's own thinners. And then down here, which I'm going to need a new bottle because I'm getting low, we've got actual Tamiya or Tamiya thinners, okay, with Tamiya paint. One thing I will say, if you can get it, it's quite hard to find in the UK at the moment, but Tamiya thinners has got a little bit of retarder in there. By that, what it means, it slows down the drying time. Obviously we're dealing with acrylics, I only ever deal with acrylics, and it just slows down the drying time just a little bit, makes it a little bit easier on the actual airbrush, helps improve sort of the flow through the airbrush and things like that, and say slows down the drying time, which is quite important, especially if you're spraying on a hot day. Extra Acrylics, it works fine. I don't know of any paint where the Tamiya thinners doesn't work well with. Yeah, I do know Mr. Colour doesn't like certain things like Valero Model Air, it's not too keen on, and things like that, because it's more of a synthetic thinner, because I think the actual Hobby Colour, the Gunzo ones, is more of a latex or a sort of a chemically, more chemical, shall we say, based paint. So there we go, we're going to be using this, and what we do, we just pop this over here. Okay, we're just going to take our thing. So what we've got, pipettes, invaluable, always use pipettes, very handy to do. Now you can mix separately, or you can mix directly in the colour cup. I would say, depending on your paint, if you've got an older paint and it's got some, shall we say, nasties in it and things like that, then you can obviously mix it separately. These little guys are quite nice. You can pick these up from your local sort of fast food restaurants. They're little paper cups. Obviously don't keep painting there too long because it will soak through and be horrible, but if you're doing for just quick mixes and things like that, they're very handy. Or you can buy some sort of Perspex jars and have them like that. So anyway, we're already on this one. What we're going to do first, we're going to prime it. Okay, now priming, you can use like a Halford's primer or something like that. Me personally, I like something like Tamiya paints. Quite an expensive way, you might say, but I'm only doing this, so it's not going to be too bad. I'm going to use XF19 because we're going to be going over this in sort of a very grey blue colour. I don't want to put anything, but I have been known in the past to do it in sort of anything from light blues, because it literally is just a primer. So okay, we're going to give this a good old mix, and mixing your paint is really important. Okay, many a times people say to me, I've got spitting in my airbrush and bits and pieces like that. I would actually say it's because your paintwork hasn't been mixed that well. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to mix this just in the cup here. Take your thinners first. Okay, we've got 1 ml of thinners going in here, just like so. And then what we're going to do, we'll take another pipette. Okay, and we're just going to suck 1 ml out of here, so it's a 50-50 mix. And what we do, I'm going to put it in, suck the lot up, okay, just like this, and then I'm going to squirt it back, suck it up, squirt it out, and that's going to mix it. Okay, just like so. So we've done that a few times, and we just gently tap and pump what's hanging in the edge area. So what we can do, we can just move that aside to one side. As I said, normally have obviously your ventilation on and everything else like that. Okay, so what we're going to do just for a moment, we're just going to get a spare piece of kitchen roll just here, just down in front, just off the one side, okay, and this is so I can check my flow and see how we're going. So all down for air, pushing back, and we've got the paint coming through very nicely, okay. Checking my air pressure, we're shooting about 25 to 30 psi, quite strong. Okay, I'm going to start on the underside, and then just gently we're going to be working up and down this part of the wing. So literally we're just going to come along and we go up. Okay, there's no real patterns. We can do swirly patterns, we can move up and down. Okay, and we go up and down. As soon as it looks too wet, okay, and it looks like you might get a run in a minute, we just put stop, let it dry naturally, move over to somewhere else, or the other way is just push down for air and dry that particular area off. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're just going to work our way around the entire model. We're looking for any big lumps, chunks that are wrong. Perhaps we've got a gap, or you can see a fingerprint at this stage, because you can always stop. Okay, stop exactly what you're doing and then literally come back and say, right, we're going to take care of that, and we can sand or fill or whatever's required. I know what you might be thinking as well, he's just sprayed all over his lights. Well, we're going to clean them off in a moment, as you'll see. So that's it. We're spraying quite dry, so we come along, cover the area, perhaps like these engine nauticals you might be able to see on the close-up, okay, and then just cut to air and dry them down. Okay, so we're just going to work everywhere, right the way over the model, okay, and just relaxing with our spraying, just taking it time. It's supposed to be fun. Okay, coming up over the back. Let's say, looks too wet, just cut to air. Trigger all the way forward, just air coming out. Don't move in too close because you're going to blow it all over the place. But literally, we just come up a little bit. Okay, checking your centre seams to make sure they're all neat and tidy and you've got no big gaps or anything else like that. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to carry on with this bit for a moment, and you can just have a watch as I go round. Okay, so there we go, that's done. So what we're looking for now, we're making sure it's all smooth, there's no joins, no big fingerprints, and everything is all very nice. And I'm quite happy with how that is. So we're going to place it over to one side, do a quick colour change. So we're just going to grab a little bit of thinners into the colour cup, grab an oldish brush, okay, bit of a mix around, just get all the nasties out. Obviously you get some dried up around the top, you want to make sure they're out, otherwise what will happen is they can go as a lump and fall into the colour cup down to the business end, and if it gets stuck around where the needle is and obviously where the end cap is, it can cause all types of trouble. So what we do is we don't squirt that through because it's probably going to block, we just tip that all out, okay, blow through the rest and just put a tiny bit of thinners in here. Got the cleaning station, and squirt that through. And if you do it just after you finish like this, you really shouldn't have any troubles at all. So there we go, that's all neat and done. What we'll do is just give this a quick run around the top and everything, keeping your airbrush nice and clean, and we just pinch the end as well so we're nice and clean all around where the needle is and the business end. So next up, what we can do, we can then start on the actual pre-shading of the aircraft. Now pre-shading is just a way of giving a shadow or a depth to the actual aircraft itself. So it might look like a dirty line underneath and it builds up. What it's really doing is breaking up the surface. This aircraft's all going to be blue, so obviously if we didn't use it, it would look like a brick and like a block, very sort of die-casty, something like that. So this will enable us to break it up just a little bit. So what we'll do, we just take some black, and we haven't got a great deal here. Again, just about a 50-50 mix, so we're going to put in 1/2 ml in there, and then what we'll do, we just need to give this a bit of a mix up, because I'm just getting low down here in the paint. So what I'm going to do is just mix it up like this, put a bit on the brush, and go in. You take a bit more paint on the brush, just mixing it in. Okay, there we go, just like that. Check our flow. Now, obviously, depending how close you are, we'll make a sharper line. But with this, we want to be somewhat sort of subtle. So what we're going to do, turn the airbrush down to about 20 psi. Okay? And then what we'll do, we'll start on the underside, just down here. Okay, and we just bring you in a little bit so you can see a bit better. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're looking for larger panel lines, things like that. The other thing I'm going to do as well is just prop the underside, because obviously when you blow down here we don't want it rocking. Okay, so we've got a nice big panel going on here. We've got one at the end, so we're just going to put a line down the end, just like this. Okay, then one running along. Okay, we've got a panel back here. Okay, and we've got one just around the flat. Now don't worry about, obviously, your airbrushing. If it's a bit swirly and not very straight, because in reality you don't want it to be perfectly straight, otherwise it's going to be too crisp a line. And if I just turn that compressor on a second, that's it. Just get the compressor on like that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just pick out, we've got these back flaps just down here. And if you notice there, we had a little bit of flooding. Move away, pump out your airbrush. Okay, and then you can come back in again. So what we're going to do, we just got these little areas down in here. Okay, so where we've got, little hatches, things like that, we're just going to colour those in. These little dots under here. And what it'll do is just make like a little bit of staining. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to almost stain it rather than colour it. So we want it to be quite a soft line. So if it's too hard, it would show through far too much. So we're just going to go around and do these. Just the same. So there we go. That's one's done there. We're just going to pull it over. Okay, and we can just go down in here. So what we're going to do, we're going to pick up some of these. Again, we'll just block that off under there. So what we're going to do, we're going to come around and find bigger areas. One in here, one down here. Okay. Same with the Bombay, things like that. See there again, a little bit too much paint straight out. Every now and again, come along, pinch clean the actual nozzle tip itself. So give it a clean to make sure that's nice and clear. So what we're going to do now is just carry on working all the way around the model. So any big lines get big amounts of weathering, any little ones get little, okay, until the model is completely covered. Okay, so for this particular one, it's going to be all over blue. Now, it's the RAF Reconnaissance Blue, which is a BS636. Now, it's quite an odd colour, and one of the best matches for it is actually the extra acrylics one by Hannon's. I do like using this paint. The only thing I don't like about it, it's almost like a latex-based paint. So when it dries, it actually gets a skin on it. If that skin gets into your airbrush, nightmare. This is a brand new pot, so you won't have any problems. But certainly, a clean-up is a must with this stuff. So if you unscrew the top, if you get any sort of stuff going around, and what we're going to do, I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. Here we have a bit of skin, which was round on the top part. Now this here, if that gets into the business end of your airbrush, you can have all sorts of problems. And as I say, this is just the ring off of the brand new piece. That's not a proper rubber seal, that's just paint that's actually dried like that. Okay, so you want to make sure it's a very good mix before you put it in. Now this one here, as I said, is a brand new tub of it. So what you want to do is make sure it's had a good old mix first, pour it into a separate cup and then into your airbrush. I don't recommend doing what I'm about to show you, putting it straight in, but because this is a brand new one, I'm quite happy to do it. But if it was second hand, or certainly been sticking around a while, I've been used once, I wouldn't put it straight in here. So the same thing, what we're going to do, we're going to come in now with around about 1.5 mil of thinners. Let's take a tiny bit of that out. Okay, then we're just going to draw up approximately 1 mil of paint, okay, into the colour cut. Same thing, I'm going to pump it up and down to give it a good old mix. Hopefully not making too much of a mess like I've just done there. Okay, so we're just going to clean up around the base and around the top there. Okay, popping the lid back on. Okay, usual thing, we're just going to check our flow. Happy how that is. So we're going to start on the underside again. Alright, just bring it a little bit closer. Okay, so what we're going to do is basically just very, very gently mist this all over. Okay, so we're going to come in, we're a couple of inches apart. We're still about 20 psi because we're a little bit thinner on the paint. Now the idea with it being a little bit thinner, when we start to put this on, is that it will help the free shading show through. So as you can see, we just go over this wing here like this. Okay, and as the free shading starts to disappear, stop. Okay, and when you stop, like we've done here, bring it a little bit, what happens is it will start to dry back. Okay, now we're going over paint that's already down. This is like a gloss finish, it's going over a matte, so you can end up with sort of a satin finish. Okay, but what we're going to do is just very lightly mist this on. Okay, as soon as the free shading disappears, stop, and then as it dries, it will actually start to come back, and you might be able to see it coming back already in certain areas. So what we're going to do is just carry on down here. Nice long strokes, quite an even distance. As I said, as soon as it looks wet, stop, move away, go somewhere else, okay? So we're just going to come back over here. Alright, looking a little bit wet, so we've stopped there. And that's how we're going to do it. Now we'll just come over to this side here. So we just bring it over just a little bit, okay? And we're going to come in and do the inside of this one. So we're just keeping all nice and relaxed. Don't stay in one area too long, because as soon as you sort of, get a little bit tense and in one area, you could flood the area, as call it. By flooding, I mean just it's too wet, and then you can get runs and everything else. Every now and again, have a look at the end of your needle, okay, on your actual airbrush. This particular one is a nice handy feature. You can just pinch clean the end, or come off to somewhere separate, off, and then just give it a good old blowout. So we're just doing the tail planes, and as I say, this is quite a wet mix because we want the free shading to show through. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to turn it completely round. Okay, we're going to come in from the other side now. Okay, free shading disappearing, we'll stop. Okay. And anywhere where the pre-shading comes through and looks very bright, okay, and it's still very black, let it dry for a moment. Don't immediately go right over it, because obviously it might be still wet. If it's still wet, then you might get runs and things like that in there. So we're just going to run this down. And obviously if you've done your pre-shading and you've got an area it's a little bit too dark, perhaps like I've got down here around the Bombay, we're going to go over it a couple of times, but we can do all of that a little bit later on. Going to work our way round everywhere, making sure we're all happy. So we're just taking our time, building up layers, as I said, nice and slowly. Every now and again, we're going to come off, and we're just going to dry it out just a little bit. So now what we can do, because we've done over there, as you can see, just bring this one out just a fraction. There we go. You can probably see the pre-shading is coming through now on this wings, okay, on there. So now you can make the decision of saying, right, okay, well, quite strong on this side's not as strong. So what we want to do is just put a little bit more on this wing. And we can just go over it again. And the same way as perhaps down on the inside of this intake, down in here, a little bit strong. So we're going to knock that back, just give it a little bit more. Same with this nautical one here, it's a little bit strong. And there we go. So we're happy with that. Then what we're going to do, we're going to let this dry off, because as I said, we want this pre-shading to show through because it's going to be weathered. And obviously what we're going to do in a moment, we're going to lighten some of it up. But what we're going to do now is just dry this off. Okay, we're going to do exactly the same to the top. Okay, and then we're going to come back with a little bleaching effect to lighten up the panels, give it a bit of a break up and a little bit of tone and depth to your paintwork.